You are not fooling anybody when you say that what happened was a natural disaster. You're lying. It was not an earthquake. It wasn't a typhoon. Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there. And it is going to send us back to the Stone Age.
When was the first involvement? How far are we going back?
I first got a phone call 3.5 years ago. And I was still... Monsters, I don't think had even come out in the cinema, the previous film I did. And I had to keep it a secret. I couldn't tell my mum and dad. And so I went home that Christmas and everyone was like, so what you working on? How's it going? And I wanted to say, I'm directing Godzilla, and I couldn't. And so it was really tricky, keeping everything so secretive.
Did you take much convincing to become a part of the film?
No, not really. I mean, it literally was that one meeting with Gareth. And usually, you know, you think of these things as like a general meeting, or maybe it'll be 30 minutes, or, you know, read the script kind of thing. It went on for 6 hours because I was just so like, I didn't even let him out the door. It's probably like, oh God, it's going on for ages.
With the fan anticipation for this film comes responsibility too. So there's a little pressure to be able to deliver and match their expectations, and they're expecting a lot, and we think it delivers quite well. So I think they'll be very happy with it.
During the development, the script went through a few changes, and obviously a few different writers. How much did the story change over that time?
The story, obviously, you know, there's no point in doing a new pass of a screenplay if you're not going to change things. But there were some things that stuck, which were like, I guess, the set pieces in the film. We did a presentation early on in the life of the movie to the studio. And as part of that, we had what you'd call key art images. So basically like 30 or 50 images like this, you know, where they'd just be all around the room, and it basically told the visual story of the film. And that was kind of my skeleton for the movie. And so everything we did was to facilitate that and try and help that and make it more emotional and give it as much suspense as possible.
Well, I think the most attractive element to this whole story was that there was a very strong component to a father-son relationship. So you have that as a character-driven model, but also the sensibility of trying to vanquish this monster. And so the two together don't usually go together. But Gareth Edwards, our director, was very careful in making sure that the interwoven, you know, storylines were smooth, and it works out quite well.
Shooting a film on this scale with so much kind of visual effects, I mean, how did you find that, knowing so much of it would be added later after you'd kind of done your jobs? Was that hard, or?
Well, I always knew it was going to be added afterwards, but yeah, I was probably expecting to do a lot of green screen stuff and studio work, and it wasn't. It was totally different. You know, we did a lot of stuff on location with, you know, huge amount of extras and people. You know, so people would be running, screaming. We'd have great big military tanks coming through. We'd have, you know, you'd felt, and smoke machines, cars flipped upside down, rubble everywhere. You felt like you was in a war zone. You know, you really felt immersed in this kind of chaos, and so it didn't leave that much left to the imagination that you'd think maybe monsters were, you know, coming after you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I was terrified with the idea of what it was going to mean, what I was going to actually have to do. But Gareth was very informative, and he always had images on his computer of what it could possibly look like at the end. So I wasn't completely left in the dark, and just feeding off the frenetic energy of the scenes they actually created was it's pretty fun. And then you're just kind of like staring at a building and playing make believe, and it's actually a really good time.
Well, it was very interesting to be able to present this, because shooting the movie in 1954, there was a man in a suit, you know, crushing miniatures. We don't really do that anymore. There are some miniatures, but It's mostly against a green screen, and with a laser pointer, you see where the monster's head would be and where the tail would be, and you kind of mark those moments, you know, and you're looking up in horror. But it's all part of an actor's preparation, you know. Our palette is made up of personal experiences and also what we can imagine, you know. And so it's not as difficult as people think it is.
You've described Godzilla in other interviews as an anti-hero rather than a straightforward villain. I mean, was that the image you wanted to project from the very start?
I honestly don't think you have a choice. As in, I think if you portrayed Godzilla as a villain, the audience is going to root for him anyway. You know, I think he's so well loved. You can't really, even when he's killing humans, you know, for whatever reason, people still love him and want to buy the toys and things like this. And so I don't think there's really a choice. I think it's inevitable that the audience is going to be cheering for Godzilla. So you have to embrace that, I think. And in the story, we tried to create a sort of, at least a journey for the audience's relationship with Godzilla through the film.